Sydney Airport flight paths to change over inner west amid Western Sydney Airport reshuffle. We're sorry, this feature is currently unavailable. We're working to restore it. Please try again later. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Sydney Morning Herald. Sections. Network. Advertisement. National. New South Wales. Aviation. The inner city Sydney suburbs set to cop more planes flying overhead. By Matt O'Sullivan. Save articles for later. Add articles to your saved list and come back to them anytime. Advertisement. Residents in inner West Sydney suburbs such as Marrickville and Newtown are set to experience more planes taking off over their homes from Sydney Airport's main runway under a shake-up of airspace to make room for the city's new international airport. As part of the proposed changes to Sydney Airport's flight paths, jet aircraft bound for the east, which take off from the main north-south runway, will curve further westwards immediately after departing before heading over the northern beaches as they follow an arc-like path. Some inner west suburbs will cop more planes flying overhead from the changes to flight paths. Credit, Stephen Seward. Maps released by the federal government indicate Marrickville, Newtown, Camperdown and North Strathfield will cop more planes taking off from the main north-south runway, while Lilyfield, Russell Lee and Rhodes will experience fewer aircraft than at present. The proposed changes for Sydney Airport are contained in a draft environmental assessment of preliminary flight paths for Western Sydney Airport. Flight paths for Bankstown and Camden airports, and the RAF base at Richmond, will also be adjusted to accommodate planes using the new airport. About 30 planes bound for the east via the northern beaches take off each weekday from the airport's main north-south runway. In contrast, there are about 80 departures a day from the main runway towards the west, and about 47 to the city's north. Sydney Airport said the environmental assessment reinforced the need for the federal government to change regulations to allow the rollout of technology that would help curb aircraft noise for residents who live under flight paths. Western Sydney's flight paths have been designed using technology that delivers better noise and emissions outcomes, while regulations that govern our flight paths remain frozen in time, a spokesman said. Planes landing at Western Sydney Airport will be able to use a GPS-guided approach that is more accurate and predictable during approach. It means aircraft glide in more smoothly, in contrast to a so-called stepped approach for planes landing at Sydney Airport. Advertisement. The Federal Transport Department said in the assessment that changes to flight paths for Sydney Airport's main north-south runway would result in jet aircraft mostly flying over suburbs that were already overflown. These changes are minor in nature, but include changes to some of the existing departures and arrivals at Sydney Airport, the assessment said. The adjustments to flight paths will not impact existing noise-sharing arrangements for Sydney Airport. The preliminary flight paths for Western Sydney Airport, released in June, revealed houses near Greendale, Luddenham and Twin Creeks will be hit the hardest by noise from the new airport. The latest assessment of the flight paths shows fewer than 100 properties near the new curfew-free airport at Badgerys Creek, about 45 kilometres from Sydney's CBD, will be eligible for free insulation from the government to reduce aircraft noise in their homes and businesses. Blue Mountains Mayor Mark Greenhill, who has campaigned for years against the airport, said the government needed to do all it could to protect the World Heritage Area from flight paths. What we need is for the Blue Mountains to be treated in the same way as our only global equivalent, which is Banff in Canada, he said. There are flight restrictions in relation to Banff and you just can't put airliners 24/7 over it. Under the modelling in the environmental assessment, up to 12,200 residents near Western Sydney Airport may be disrupted by noise from planes 5 times a day above 70 decibels, equivalent to a washing machine, by 2055 when its first runway is forecast to reach capacity. Alternatively, up to 84,500 residents may experience plane noise above 60 decibels, enough to disturb a conversation, between 11 p.m. and 5:30 a.m. on 2 occasions a day by 2055. The Morning Edition newsletter is our guide to the day's most important and interesting stories, analysis and insights. Sign up here. Aviation. Western Sydney International. Sydney Airport. Sydney. Airports. Most viewed in national. From our partners. Advertisement. The Sydney Morning Herald. Twitter. Facebook. Instagram. RSS. Copyright 2023.